We're reading Virgil's Aeneid. We are partway through Book VII, and Aeneas and his remaining Trojans have landed on Italian soil. They made it, and we hear about some people who live there. Latinus and his family, and his sexy daughter, whom everybody wants. They're kind of thinking to marry her off to a local king named Turnus. But now Aeneas is here. And watch out. Watch out. So let's see. Next morning, when the light of risen day shone on the earth, exploring parties sought the Latin city, boundaries, and coasts. Here was Numicius's fountain and its pond. Here Tiber River. Here brave Latins lived. Aeneas ordered to the king's high city 100 legates, chosen from all ranks, their heads shaded by olive shoots of Pallas, to bear the king gifts, and to entreat a state of peace for the Teucrians. No lingering. At the command, they all moved smartly out in a quick march. Aeneas marked his line of walls with a low trench, then toiled away to deepen it, to throw an earthwork up with palisades, camp-style, around that post, their first on the riverside. So what does Aeneas do? He sends out all of his, a whole bunch of his people, fully 100 of them, to go be a delegation to go visit the local kings. And as soon as they leave, he gets to work. Remember, we're Romans. We love work and being productive. So they start to build walls around their little encampment. So they get there, they see all sorts of people doing activities. In fields outside were boys and striplings practicing horsemanship, breaking in chariot teams in clouds of dust, pulling taut bows and throwing javelins, challenging one another to race or box. Meanwhile, a messenger riding ahead reported to the old king the arrival of tall men in strange costume, and the king ordered them brought inside. He took his seat amid the court on his ancestral throne. The royal building, massive and majestic, raised on 100 columns, that's a lot for an ancient building, occupied the city's height. It had been Picus's palace, shadowed by trees and history, held in awe. Here, kings by happy omen took the scepter, lifted the rods of office up. Rods of office are a big thing for the Romans. And here they had their Senate house. And again, very anachronistic to assign a senate to, for the Romans, what would have been ancient people living, hundreds of years before. A holy place, a hall for ritual feasts. For a slain ram, their city fathers took accustomed seats on benches at long tables. They've got statues of gods and other heroes. They have battle trophies from previous wars. At ease upon the ancestral throne, Latinus called the Teucrians before him, saying tranquilly, as they entered, "Sons of Dardanus, you see, we know your city and your nation. As all had heard you laid a westward course, tell me your purpose. What design or need has brought you through the dark blue sea so far to our Ausonian coast? Either astray or driven by tough weather, such as sailors often endure at sea, you've broached the river, moored ship here. Now do not turn away from hospitality here. Know that our Latins come of Saturn's race, that we are just, not by constraint or laws, but by our choice and habit of our ancient god. Indeed, though years have dimmed the tale, I can remember old Oricans telling of Dardanus, how from this country of his birth he went on his long journey to the Idan towns of Phrygia and to Thracian Samos, now called Samothrace. From this land he set out from his old Tuscan home at Corythus, and now great halls of starry sky enthrone him, to the gods' altars adding one for him." So they often like to talk about how members of your family in the past had died and gone up and become minor deities. Oh, Dido, poor Dido. She's dead. She's not coming back. She refused to talk to Aeneas in the underworld. She turned her face. No, not going to talk to you. Every time I see the name Samothrace, which was part of ancient Greece, I always think of the old Thundercats cartoon, and one of Panthro's many wild, wacky tools that he uses is the Samoflange. And there's that great. If you've never heard it, you can go on YouTube and search Thundercats outtakes, and there are reels and reels of behind the scenes outtakes from the voice actors reading the Thundercats lines. And when they screw up or they see something particularly weird, they would curse like sailors, and it's great. And so the voice actor who played Panthro, I don't know his name offhand, but he's reading something about how Panthro needs a Samoflange, and then in the outtake he says, "What the fuck is a Samoflange?" It's good stuff. Let's see. Latinus continues. He talks a lot. Oh no, okay, no. He's done. Oh, sorry. Then Ilonius, the one of the heralds of Aeneas, starts talking. Your Majesty, most noble son of Faunus, no rough seas or black gale swept us to your coast. No star or clouded sea mark put us off our course. We journey to your city by design and general consent, driven as we are from realms in other days greatest by far the sun looked down on, passing on his way from heaven's far eastern height. Talks about how Aeneas is descended from the gods, blah, 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 blah. We had storms, blah, 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 blah. It took us a long time to get here. Now we ask a modest settlement of the gods of home, a strip of coast that will bring harm to no one, air and water open and free to all. We will not shame your kingdom. You shall win no light in passing fame, nor from ourselves a passing gratitude for your kind act. Ausonians who take Troy to their hearts will not regret it. By Aeneas' destiny I swear, and by his powerful right hand, whether tested in covenants or battle, many a people, many a race, and here do not disdain us for this overture and offering pleas and gratitude. Many, I say, have come to us and wished alliance with us. But by the will of heaven and heaven's commands, our quest was for your country. Dardanus had birth here, and Apollo calls us back, directing us by solemn oracles to Tuscan Tiber, to the sacred waters of the Numician fountain. Here, besides, Aeneas gives you from his richer years these modest gifts, relics caught up and saved from burning Troy. This golden cup Anchises used for libations at the altars. Priam bore this accoutrement when giving laws to people in due form called to assembly, scepter and holy diadem, and robes woven by Trojan women. So again, you always give gifts. We have the visitors giving gifts. Oftentimes, the host will then give gifts in return. Latinus heard Ilonius out, his countenance averted, sitting immobile, all attention, eyes downcast, but turning here and there. The embroidered purple and the scepter of King Priam moved him less than his own kingliness, than long thoughts on the marriage of his daughter, as he turned over in his innermost mind old Faunus' prophecy. This is the man, he thought, foretold as coming from abroad to be my son-in-law, by fate appointed, called to reign here with equal authority, the man whose heirs will be brilliant in valor and win the mastery of the world. So again, we heard already that there are prophecies that the line of Aeneas will go on and on and on, and they'll found Rome, and then of course Rome will take over the entire world, which essentially by Augustus's time it kind of did for from the perspective of people living in Italy and living in that part of the world, the Roman Empire was enormous beyond belief. It went about as far as anybody could envision traveling. And then, of course, it would get even bigger with further emperors. At length he spoke in his elation. May the gods assist our enterprise as their own. What you desire will be granted, Trojan, and I accept your gifts. While I am king, you shall not want for bounty of rich land or miss the wealth of Troy. Aeneas himself should come, though, if he has such need of us as bids for guesthood for an ally's name. He should not shrink from friendly faces here. For me, a requisite of the peace will be to join hands with your captain. He wants to meet the dude. He doesn't want to just say, okay, you can go and have your land out there by the water. You've got to come here and meet me. Mainly because he wants to marry off his daughter to Aeneas. Now return to your ship moorings. Bring the king my messages. I have a daughter whom the oracles of Father's shrine and warning signs from heaven keep me from pledging to a native here. Sons from abroad will come, blah, 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 blah. Your king's the man called for by fate, so I conclude, and so I wish, if there is truth in what I presage. So there he just says it flat out. You got to bring Aeneas back here because he's got to marry my daughter. He sends 300 horses to go with them, ornamented with purple saddle cloths, with golden chains, golden snoods, and yellow golden bits they champed between their teeth. Then for Aeneas, absent though he was, he picked a chariot and a team, a pair grown from immortal stock and snorting fire. Pretty cool horses. Their sire was that stallion crafty Circe stole from the sun, her father, and put to stud with a mortal mare, getting a bastard breed. So again, the Trojans bring gifts for the king. The king gives them a bunch of gifts to take back with them to Aeneas. Everybody gets gifts. All right. So then there's a little break when this text is broken up. Again, this wouldn't have been broken up in the original text, but we know we have a little bit of a scene change, and it says, "Only look upward, though, at Jove's unpitying queen. She, at that hour, made her way back from Inachus's Argos, holding her course in the air. From her great height over Pacanus and Sicily to the south, she could discern Aeneas taking heart, ships' companies already building shelters, leaving the ships, trusting the land they found. She stayed her flight as pain went through her. Then she tossed her head and cried out from her heart, 'O hateful race, and fate of the Phrygians pitted against my own! Could they be killed on the Sigean battlefield? When beaten, could they be beaten? Troy on fire? Did Troy consume her men? Amid the spears, amid the flames, they found a way. I must, for my part, think my powers by this time tired out, supine or sleeping, surfeited on hate. Well, when they were ejected from their country, I had the temerity as their enemy to dog them, fight them over the whole sea, these refugees. The strength of sea and sky has been poured out against these Teucrians. What were the Syrtes worth to me, or Scylla? What was Charybdis worth? By Tiber's longed-for bed, they now lay out their town, unworried by deep water or by me. Mars had the power to kill the giant race of Lapiths, and the father of gods himself gave up old Calydon to Diana's wrath. What great sin did Calydon or Lapith's justice so rough? How differently from me, the great consort of Jove, who nerved myself to leave no risk unventured, lent myself to every indignity. I am defeated, and by Aeneas. Well, if my powers fall short, I need not falter over asking help wherever help may lie. If I can sway no heavenly hearts, I'll rouse the world below. It will not be permitted me, so be it, to keep the man from rule in Italy. By changeless fate Lavinia waits, his bride. And yet to drag it out, to pile delay upon delay in those great matters, that I can do. To destroy both countries' people, that I can do. Let father and son-in-law untie at that cost to their own. At their own. In blood, Trojan and Latin, comes your dowry, girl. Bridesmaid Bellona waits now to attend you. Hecuba's not the only one who carried a burning brand within her and bore a son whose marriage fired a city. So it is with Venus's child, a Paris once again, a funeral torch again for Troy reborn. When she had said all this, she dropped to earth in a shuddering wind. From the dark underworld, home of the Furies, she aroused Alecto, grief's dear mistress, with her lust for war, for angers, ambushes, and crippling crimes. Even her father Pluto hates this figure, even her hellish sisters, for her myriad faces, for her savage looks, her head alive and black with snakes. Now Juno spoke to excite her. Here is a service all your own that you can do for me, daughter of night. Here is a way to help me, to make sure my status and renown will not give way or be impaired, and that Aeneas's people cannot, by marriage, win Latinus over, laying siege to Italy. You can arm for combat brothers of one soul between them, twist homes with hatred, bring your whips inside, or firebrands of death. 1,000 names belong to you, 1,000 ways of wounding. Shake out the folded stratagems within you. Break up this peace pact. Scatter acts of war. And in a flash let men desire, demand, and take up arms. Now, one thing that's... she sounds like she needs a hobby. Yeah, she's... well, and she gives it away a little bit there, toward the end. Because it's partly that she hates Aeneas for... we talked about this with the Trojan War. There's so many causes and so many twisting tendrils of stories. Juno is mad for so many reasons, right? She's mad because Paris didn't pick her and picked, there's all these different levels. And she supported the Greeks and, Jupiter doing stuff with, there's so many things. But she gives it away here, though, that it's also not just because she hates Aeneas and Trojans, but she also feels slighted and that people will think of her as not being as powerful as she used to be. It's like, oh, okay, so is that the real reason? But she notes here, when she's summoning Alecto, the Fury, to come and cause havoc, she talks about how you can arm for combat brothers of one soul between them. So now this means a couple different things. So we're going to find out exactly who she's talking about. People who otherwise would be very similar and would be friends, like brothers, but will end up fighting. But also, what does it mean to have brother fighting brother? Well, typically that's a phrase... Gardeners. Typically when you hear brother fighting brother, that's a term we use for civil war, right? Now again, pulling back a little bit, the Romans in Virgil's time, civil war is something that they remember and did not like, because a lot of the people in this time either could remember or were in the next generation after those who were around when Caesar was fighting everybody else, and you had the split up between Pompey and Caesar trying to take over and all of that kind of stuff. So they remember very recently, and then of course everything happening to get to the succession of Augustus taking over. There was a lot of civil war very recently for the Romans, and they're hearing this and they're like, oh shit, civil war, brother fighting against brother. Oh, we don't like that. We don't want that. So again, it would have a very specific impact for the listeners. Without delay, Alecto, dripping deadly venom as the Gorgons, passed into Latium first in the high hall of the Laurentine king. Just like in the TV series, that's right. She took her place on the still threshold of the queen, Amata, burning already at the Trojans' come-in. The plans for Turnus's marriage broken off, Amata tossed and turned with womanly anxiety and anger. So the queen is Amata. And remember, she wanted her daughter to marry Turnus, one of the local... That was crazy. It's building day for Benjamin. This is the last week of school, and there are a lot of activities that don't really involve school. So whatever he built just collapsed in an epic way. Everything's fine. So Amata wanted her daughter to marry Turnus. She's already unhappy that doesn't seem to be going on. But now the goddess plucked one of the snakes, her gloomy tresses, and tossed it at the woman, sent it down her bosom to her midriff and her heart, so that by this black reptile driven wild she might disrupt the whole house. And the serpent, slipping between her gown and her smooth breasts, went writhing on, though imperceptible to the fevered woman's touch or sight, and breathed viper's breath into her. The sinuous mass became her collar of twisted gold, became the ribbon of her headdress. In her hair it twined itself and slid around her body, while the infection first, like dew of poison fallen on her, pervaded all her senses, netting her bones in fire, though still her soul had not responded fully to the flame. She spoke out softly, quite like any mother, shedding hot tears at the marriage of her child to a Phrygian. These Trojan refugees, father, are they to take away Lavinia in marriage? Have you no pity for your daughter, none for yourself? No pity for her mother, who will be left alone by the faithless man, the rover, going to sea at the first north wind with a girl for booty? Was that not the way the Phrygian shepherd entered Lacedaemon and carried Helen off to Troy's fair city? So she's like, look, this Aeneas guy, he travels all over the world. He's got a girl in every port. You can't trust this guy. He's just like the other Trojan. You remember Paris coming and getting Helen? Is that what's going to happen to our daughter? What of your solemn word, your years of love for your own people, your right hand so often given to Turnus, our blood kin? Suppose the son of foreign stock is to be found for Latins, and for this hold, and the command your father Faunus gave weighs hard upon you, then I maintain that every separate country free from all rule of ours is foreign land. And this is what the gods mean. Turnus, too, if we seek origins, had Inachus and Acrisius as forebears at Mycenae. So essentially she's trying to give justifications for, okay, yeah, we have this oracle. It says a foreign king will marry our daughter. But one way to look at it is that outside of our kingdom, every other kingdom is a foreign kingdom, even if they're right next door. Like, is that what they meant? I don't know. Finding Latinus proof against this plea and holding firm, while in her viscera the serpent's evil madness circulated, suffusing her, the poor queen, now inflamed by prodigies of hell, went wild indeed, and with insane abandon roamed the city. One sees at times a top that a wound-up thong snapped into a spin, when, all eyes for the sport, boys drive it round a court in a great circle, sweeping curves on the ground, flicked by the whip, while the small boys in fascination bend above the rounded boxwood as it whirls, given new life at each stroke of the lash. So, restless, wheeling like a spinning top, Amata sped on, driven through the town amid her hardy townsmen. She's spinning. Oh, welcome, Hudsonizer. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's a Eternals trailer. It's it's basically nothing. Yeah, the teaser trailer's out this morning. Um, Debatable. You might say it's worse than nothing because I don't know. I wish it showed something. It was almost nothing. Oh look, we were just talking about a top, and here's the top from DC Comics. It does not like the top. Woo! Classic Flash villain, one of the rogues. Old super rare. I mean, I guess that Eternals thing was something. I was underwhelmed. There are some amazing actors in this movie. I know the designs are going to look great. There weren't a lot of them showing up, or there weren't a lot of those showed off in that trailer. All right, hey, look, Hudsonizer. Just my opinion. I'm happy to hear other ones. I watched it on my phone, and even with the brightness turned all the way up, it looked really dark, and I couldn't see a lot, especially in the first couple shots inside their ship. I don't know. It didn't grab me as much as I was hoping it was going to be. Zardoz, yeah, you are absolutely right. This is a super rare. I mean, this figure is also from 2008, so it's not really playable now. Although we have new rules, and he might have new life. Hudsonizer, like I said, I'm glad you liked it. Everybody should go watch it. We're all gonna go see the movie when it comes out, but I was underwhelmed. And the whole so I have read the Eternals, or the most famous run of it. There aren't that many. I like to talk about how, yes, the Eternals. It's a Marvel movie. It's about Marvel Comics. A series that even most comic book people have never read. It's not a very popular series or very popular characters. So we'll see what they do with them. But we'll see how they jive the story of the Eternals with the MCU. And I don't know how easy it's going to be. You've got these great heroes who have been on Earth forever, but have just been kind of sitting around not doing anything while Earth has been under siege so many times. But we'll see. I'm sure it'll be great, right? Has Marvel made a bad movie? Arguably, no. Have they made bad TV shows? Maybe more arguably, yes. We'll see what happens. Oh, yeah, Star Fox is out. Okay. Anyway, brief we'll talk again about the Eternals. There are Eternals hero clicks. Of course. All right, where were we? Oh yes, so Amata is just whipping around the town, trying to find support for her schemes here. Worse, she feigned Bacchic possession, daring a greater sin and greater madness. Off to the woods she ran, into the leafy hills, and hid her child to snatch a marriage from the Teucrians or to postpone the wedding. "Evoe, Bacchus!" she shrilled out, and then cried again that you alone, the god, deserved the girl who held an ivy thyrsus in your honor and danced for you and let her hair grow long, sacred to you. As word of this went round, Laurentine mothers, fired by sudden madness, felt the same passion to acquire new homes. They left the old ones, bearing to the wind their necks and hair, while some in fawn-skin dress filled heaven with long, quavering cries and bore vine-covered wand spears. In their midst, the queen held up a blazing firebrand of pine, and in her fever sang a marriage hymn for Turnus and her daughter, glancing around with bloodshot eyes. She called out suddenly and savagely, "Mothers of Latium, listen, wherever you may be. If your good hearts feel any kindness Still for poor Amata, any concern for justice to a mother? Shake your headbands loose, take up the revel along with me. To this extreme she went in the wild wood, the wilderness of beasts, driven by Alecto with a Bacchic goad. Dun, dun, dun. So Amata has gone a bit crazy. She has gone into the wilderness as though she is part of a Bacchic ritual, taken her daughter with her. She's raving mad that she's going to give her daughter to Bacchus, or she's going to go marry her to Turnus herself. She's a little bit confused. And some other ladies are joining her, which is not good. When to the Furies' mind the first mad fit has been whipped up enough, seeing Latinus' counsel subverted and his home undone, Alecto rose up on somber wings and flew straight to the bold Rutulians' walls, the city which, they say, Danae founded with her Acrisian colonists, blown there by gale winds from the south. So they're going to the Rutulians. In this high dwelling there in darkest night, Turnus peacefully slept. So we're getting to Turnus of the Rutulians. Alecto stripped her savage mask off and her fury's shape to take on an old woman's face. She lined her forehead with deep seams, put on white hair and headband, twining there a shoot of olive. So she became Calliope, thrall in age to Juno and a priestess of her temple. So she's in disguise. Moving near before the young man's eyes, she wheedled, "Turnus, can you bear to see so many efforts wasted, spilt like water, and your own rule made over to the Dardan colonists? The king withholds your bride, withholds the dowry that you fought and bled for. Go into danger and be laughed at for it? Mow down the Tuscan ranks, shelter the Latins under your peace pact? So, these messages, while you lay in the stillness of the night, Saturn's almighty daughter ordered me herself to bring before you. Come then, put your young troops under arms, glory in arms, prepare a sortie and fight. These Phrygian captains in their camp on our fine river, give them a burn-in. Burn their painted ships. Great force in heaven demands it. Let the king Latinus too, unless he undertake to yield your bride and keep his word, let him feel this, and feel at last the fear of meeting Turnus in arms." So basically there was a deal before that in order for Turnus to be worthy of marrying Lavinia, he had to go and lead the Rutulians in battle against the Tuscans. So there's already been bloodshed. Essentially, Turnus has already fought and bled for this marriage that's now being denied him, which isn't cool, even though the gods demand it and have outlined that it's going to happen. Now, making light of her, the young man gave his answer to the seer. "News of the squadron making port on Tiber has not failed, as you think, to reach my ears. Do not imagine me afraid. Queen Juno has not forgotten me. But old age, mother, sunk in decay and too far gone for truth, is giving you this useless agitation, mocking your prophet's mind with dreams of fear and battles between kings. Your mind should be on the gods' images and on their shrines. Men will make war and peace, as men should do." Ugh. Oh, yeah. Turnus' hobby is just bloodshed. That's like his main thing. Being so dismissed, Alecto blazed in wrath, and sudden trembling ran through the man's body even as he spoke, his eyes in a rigid stare. For now the fury hissed with all her serpents, all her hideous faces. Glancing round with eyes of flame, As the man's faltering tongue tried to say more, she threw him back and raised a pair of snakes out of her writhing hair, then cracked and cracked her whip and railed at him. "Look at me now, sunk in decay. See how old age in me is too far gone for truth, deluding me with battles between kings and dreams of fear. Look at these dreams of mine. I come to you from the Black Sisters' home and bring war and extinction in my hand." That's pretty cool. With this, she hurled a torch and planted it below the man's chest, smoking with hellish light. Enormous terror woke him. A cold sweat broke out all over him and soaked his body. Then, driven wild, shouting for arms, he ransacked house and chamber. Lust of steel raged in him, brute insanity of war, and wrath above all, as when fiery sticks are piled with a loud crackling by the side of a cauldron boiling, and the water heaves and seethes inside the vessel, steaming up with foam, and bubbling higher till the surface holds no more, and vapor mounts to heaven. So, then, in violation of the peace, he told the captains of his troops to march on King Latinus, ordering arms prepared, the land defended, and the enemy pushed back from the frontiers. He too would come, a match for Teucrians and Latins both. His orders given, vows made to the gods, his countrymen cheered one another on, and vied with one another to make war, this one admiring Turnus's princeliness, his figure, and his youth. This one the king's, his ancestors, this one his feats afield. Rabid Wombat, have a good one. Good luck. Good luck with work. Yeah, Alecto's not one you want to give any sass to. She'll mess you up. Okay, so Turnus has been fully enraged. He's off to fight. And notably there... So we've talked at length in a lot of these stories about law. And what does it mean? What do laws mean? Where do they come from? What does it mean to break laws? And what's the hierarchy of laws? So very specifically here, it says that Turnus, summoning his troops to go out and fight, he is breaking the law. Because he has a pact with Latinus, a peace treaty, essentially. But if he was promised Lavinia in marriage, and Latinus is going back on that, shouldn't that be the first breaking of the law of the peace between them? It's a valid question. Depends on your interpretation of what the gods are telling people to do, of what human law is compared to the law of the gods. So there. But Alecto is still not done. Still not done. While Turnus filled these men with recklessness, Alecto beat her way on Stygian winds, let me try that one again. Alecto beat her way on Stygian wings, coastward to Trojans, with a fresh design. Surveying that wild region on the shore, where shining Iulus trapped or hunted, here the virgin of the wailing underworld brought sudden frenzy on the hounds. She touched their nostrils with a long familiar scent, so they would run a stag. She touched their nostrils with a long familiar scent, so they would run a stag hot on the track. This the first cause of turmoil, kindling hearts of country folk to war. So Iulus, Aeneas' son, is out hunting with his hunting dogs. And so Alecto gives them the scent of a stag. There was a stag, a beauty, with a giant spread of antlers, taken before weaning from a doe, and brought up tame by boys, as by their father Tyrrus, the chief herdsman to the king and warden of his wide estates. So now we have another character, Tyrrus, who is the chief herdsman to the king. So Tyrrus has sons, and they raised up this deer as a pet. Their sister Sylvia had trained the beast with love to do her bidding. She would wreath his horns with garlands, groom him, bathe him in a spring of limpid water. Placid under her hand, accustomed to the table of his mistress, the stag would roam the forest, then return, however late at night, to the gate he knew. So he's like, it's a fully domesticated stag. It's beautiful. They put garlands on his head. You can guess where this is going. Now, as he wandered far from home, the hounds of Eulus on the hunt, furiously barking, started the stag. He had been floating down a river. This poor deer, he was just swimming. Keeping cool by the green bank, Aeneas himself now on the chase, and passionate for the honor of the kill, let fly a shaft from his bent bow. Alecto's guidance did not fail his hand, or let him shoot amiss, and the arrow, whizzing loud, whipped on to pierce the belly and the flank. Mortally hurt, the swift deer made for home in the farm buildings. Groaning, he found his stall, and coated with dark blood, he filled the house with piteous cries, as though imploring mercy. Hugging her shoulders, beating with her hands, the sister, Sylvia, raised a cry for help, calling her tough countrymen, who came soon, unexpectedly, for the pitiless fiend in the silent wood lay hidden. One was armed with a burnt-out brand, one with a knotted cudgel, each with whatever weapon anger first put in groping hand. So we have this poor, domesticated pet deer, Aeneas, Eulus, whatever you want to call him, hunting, shoots the deer, mortally wounded. It drags itself back home, crying. Sylvia, the daughter, sees this, calls her friends, her countrymen, to fight. Herdsmen for war were rounded up by Tyrrus, breathing fury, armed with an axe, for he had chanced to be splitting an oak 4 ways with driven wedges. Now the fierce goddess from her lookout post, judging the time for further harm had come, flapped to the stable roof, and from the peak sounded the herdsman's call. On her curved horn she sent into the air a blast from hell, at which all groves were set at once a-tremble, and the deep forest rang and rang again. The lake of Trivia heard it far away, so did the river Nar. Blah, 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 blah. Then truly at the sound, the signal given by that dire trumpet, weaponed and on the run from every quarter, farmers and foresters came together. Trojan troops as well poured from the camp through open gates to bring Aeneas aid, and both sides formed for battle. So already they're lining up to start a freaking war. Excuse me. I'm going to take a drink. We gotta have the commentary by the children. Thank you for that, Savage Punch. No longer now a shindy of country boys with fire-hardened stakes and oaken clubs, but darkened on a wide field they contended with two-edged steel. Like standing crops in ranks abristle with drawn swords and armor shining, struck by the sun and flashing to the clouds, blah, 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 blah. So, in a matter of no time, both sides, mere herdsmen and foresters, and then on the other side, Aeneas's Trojans excuse me, have drawn up for battle. Excuse me. Woo. All right, much better. Ahead of the front rank, a whizzing arrow brought down a young man, Almo, eldest son of Tyrrhus. That's Almo, not Elmo. As the point lodged in his throat, choking the moist channel of his voice and the frail breath of life with blood. Around him many dead soon lay, one old Galastus, killed as he interposed and pled for peace, the fairest minded of them all, and richest in those days of Ausonian lands. He owned 5 flocks of bleeding sheep, 5 herds of kine, 100 plows that turned his many acres. Now, while they fought on the wide field with Mars impartial still, Alecto's promise kept when she had stained the field with blood and caused first combat losses. Now the feral goddess left Hesperia and veered away through airy sky, proud of her feat to brag to Juno. So Alecto's looking, she's like, yep, I did it. I fucked things up real good. So she goes back up to Juno. See your quarrel brought to the point of grievous war. Now tell them to be friends. Tell them to make a pact, now that I've splashed the Trojan and Ausonian blood. There's more if I'm sure you want it. I can send out rumors to stir the border towns to war, fire them with lust for the madness of war, so they'll be joining in from everywhere. I'll scatter weapons up and down the land. But Juno said, terrors and treacheries we have in plenty. All that may prolong a war is there. They fight now hand to hand, and luck gave are running with fresh blood. There is the marriage, there is the ceremony Venus's distinguished son and that great king Latinus may take joy in. As for you, this roving rather freely in high air is hardly as the father wishes, he who rules highest Olympus. Down with you! If any further need to act arises, I myself will manage. So she's dismissing Alecto, telling her to go back to her underworld home. At these words from Saturn's daughter, Alecto spread those wings that hiss with snakes and left the towering air for the underworld again. There is a spot in central Italy where the mountains are, a noted place, heard of in many lands, the Valley of Amsanctus. Flanks of forest, dark with leaves, close in on either side, and in the midst a torrent rumbles down, a twisted channel swirling through the rocks. Here people show a shuddersome cold cave, an outlet for the breath of cruel Dis, and an abyss that opens jaws of death, where Acheron bursts through. Between these jaws the Fury settled in her hateful power, giving relief of earth and sky. But still the queenly daughter of Saturn, undeterred, gave her last touches to the war. The crowd of shepherds as one man rushed from the field into the city, carrying the dead, young Almo and Galastus all disfigured. There they implored the vengeance of the gods and called upon Latinus to bear witness. Turnus at hand now, among men on fire with rage over the slaughter, made their fears redouble, saying rule fell to the Trojans. Italians were to mix with Phrygian stock. He had been turned away from the king's door. The kin, then, of those mothers in ecstasy who danced for Bacchus in the wilderness, Amata's name no light encouragement, came in from everywhere with cries for Mars. Nothing would do but that. Against the omens, against the oracles, by a power malign, they pled for frightful war. And as they all thronged, outshouting one another round the palace, Latinus, though, like a sea cliff, stood fast. Like a sea cliff that when this great sea comes to shatter on it, and the waves like hounds give tongue on every side, holds grandly on, Blah, 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 blah. But when no power was given him to defeat their blinded counsel, and things took their course at cruel Juno's nod, Father Latinus, calling upon all the gods, on heaven's empty air, cried, I am breached by fate, wrecked, swept away by storm. You'll pay the price, poor people, with your sacrilegious blood. This punishment will haunt you, and the grim punishment, Turnus, will come home to you. But it will be too late to pray to the gods. For me, I've earned my rest. Though entering haven, I am deprived of happiness and death. He said no more, but shut himself away and dropped the reins of rule over the state. So in the span of a single day, this entire kingdom, this entire area has gone to complete shit. Amata, the queen, has literally run off in madness into the woods, dragging a bunch of other women with her. Turnus, the king next door, has brought up arms to come and fight because he's not going to get to marry the princess anymore. All of these herdsmen are formed up in battle to fight the Trojans. They're getting slaughtered. It's a mess. It's a mess. No one's listening. And Latinus says, I'm too old for this shit, and he gives up. He's like, I'm out of here. You guys figure it out. You're all going to suffer for this. We're not listening to the gods. I'm done. Done. And he goes inside. And that is where we are going to leave off in Book 7. Which is called, incidentally, Juno Served by a Fury. There's a few more pages of that, and then we'll get into Book 8, which is called Arcadian Allies. So there. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to me do a little bit of reading today. At some point we'll talk about, if anybody wants to, if anybody cares, and if anybody watched, we could talk about Army of the Dead, because I watched that on HBO Max. All 2.5 hours of it. Should any zombie movie be longer than 1.5 hours? We could debate that. But I won't give any spoilers. Oh, I'm sorry, Netflix. That's right, Netflix. The other Zack Snyder movie was on HBO Max. Thank you. It's Netflix, so everybody can watch it. Yeah. It was a thing. It's Zack Snyder, so you know what to expect. It was very Zack Snyder-y in a lot of ways. I guess less in some ways. The zombie movie length is dependent on how fast the humans are. Black Heavler. Yeah. Well, in this movie, and I don't think is a spoiler if you've seen any of the trailers or care, but there are some kind of unique zombies in this one. Some fast zombies. Some things we haven't really seen very much before. Some really weird stuff. The rules for the zombies in this world, there are at once a lot of rules, and then we see things that there are no rules for. Like, wait, what was that? I always forget the guy's name, but the guy who does the the pitch meeting videos on Screen Rant, he did one for this movie, and it's great as always. All of those are so good. But that one brings up some of like the weirdest things in the movie. Like, wait, what was that? Was that going to be another plot line that you just abandoned because we saw that weird thing happen twice and then never speak of it again? Yes, I highly recommend those pitch meeting videos. They are great. But yeah, there were a couple of mythological and biblical references in that movie, one of the casinos in that version of Las Vegas is the Olympus, and then there's a Sodom and Gomorrah casino, which is like really on the nose for Las Vegas, but whatever, that's fine. Yes, Black Kevlar. The uniqueness of the zombies in the movie were unique. Yeah. I will say, so if you hadn't followed along, the controversy and the sort of the added drama for that movie was they shot a bunch of scenes with a comedian playing a small part in the movie. And then it turned out that this guy was a total scumbag, and there were all these horrible allegations against him, which I believe are true. And so they're like, we're going to take him out of the movie. So they got Tig Notaro, who is amazing in everything, and they filmed her scenes like with her just standing in front of a green screen and just digitally put her in the movie, and it's seamless. It helps that there's a lot of the movie is shot with a really short depth of field, so like a subject will be in focus, but everything else will be a little bit blurry. But if you didn't know that she was later added into the movie, you couldn't tell by watching it, or at least I couldn't. And it was funny because Dave Bautista recently talked about how he has yet to meet her, even though they're in all these scenes together, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I definitely think that ended up for the better because she's awesome. Okay, but we can talk about that movie later. I'll give people a chance to watch it if you care to do so. Streaming this week. No stream tomorrow morning. I will be on. Yes, that would be great. Yeah, I think people are saying that. With like any from now on, anybody who is problematic, just replace those people with Tig in whatever it is. I'm all for it. Tomorrow afternoon, I will be on with Jessica. I'll be remote, and I have no idea what we'll be doing. We're not reading Dune. We finished Dune before her trip, so stay tuned. I highly suggest you show up just to find out what it is that we'll be doing. So it's 5:00 Pacific tomorrow night. Wednesday normal streams. Nothing on Thursday. Regular stream on Friday, I think. I don't know if there's going to be Warhammer on Hyper this week. I don't know. As far as I know, it has not been announced if it will be. So stay tuned. You never know what's going to happen. I know. Apparently, I'm going to be playing video games with Jessica at some point. We'll see how that goes. All right. And let's see. All right. It looks like Hyper RPG is on now, so we can raid them. Let's see what they're up to. Something called Biomutant. Sounds cool. I like Biomutants. And what is the Guyver bio boosted armor? Oh, got it. I remember. Okay, so say hi to Hyper and have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow night over on Jessica's stream. Go watch Army of the Dead if you want to, and we can talk about it maybe Friday. I'll give people a few more days. Okay, have a great day, everybody. See ya.